Welcome to the Bruce Growth channel, where I cover topics on self-improvement, share valuable strategies, and overall aim to make your student life much easier and more powerful. This video is all about these powerful yet small and easy to implement habits that you can incorporate into your daily life. Or perhaps you already have similar habits or ideas, and if so, do share them in the comment section down below. Remember, we're all on an endless journey of learning together. How did I consume these books? Well, lucky for us nowadays, you don't really have to just read a book, you can also listen to it. Whether it be on YouTube, Audible, or Spotify, there are plenty of options to go around. I personally use Audible, which is way cheaper than ordering a dozen books and still supports the authors. Amazingly, a good portion of these books are even voiced by the authors themselves, which adds a lot of delivery. I listen to them when I'm riding the bus, running, or doing mundane tasks when I'm not busy, but I generally tend to read otherwise. That too is a small but powerful habit. Try it out. Now I will cover the habits as described in the books and then go to the execution bit, showing you a practical example of how I, and possibly you, can also incorporate these strategies. Scheduling efficiently. Someday is today. I think I'm not the only one who sees Matthew Dicks as somebody who is a bit crazy when it comes to managing his time efficiently, especially after reading his book. But there are a lot of great lessons that this book contains when it comes to creating an efficient schedule. He goes on how many of us have way too much time in our pockets that is often wasted. For example, me and my roommates are getting ready to go out and have a drink, and then one of them says that they still have to shower. That's 10 minutes of wait time that often goes wasted by sitting on a couch or scrolling on Instagram. Dix, like the writer he is, would theoretically flip open his laptop and get 3 to 4 sentences of quality writing in, and then would head out once his roommates are ready. These are empty pockets of time that prominently come up with unforeseen variables. If you have many of them showing up each day, you can stuff them and maybe get an extra 30 minutes in. The author describes managing your own time by creating structure, a systemized daily process that goes to maximize your output. So I'm gonna make an example. For my sophomore year, I decided to move closer to City Square, close to my uni, to the gym, grocery store, where I go kickboxing and where some of my friends live. I can save time that way by going to university and then directly to my gym, grocery shopping, and then don't waste much time at all. It's almost become a game on how much time I can save by lining up a simple path in which I can get many things done. The author stresses how much every minute counts, and I get that. While it's important to take time off, this time will taste all the sweeter if you know that you've properly used up every ounce of time throughout your day. Point 5. Using dental floss while showering. This is a brief point that's crazy powerful when put into practice. It's actually kind of funny, but this is probably my second or third biggest takeaway from the actual book itself. It's something the author himself probably still does daily. So I ask you, do you floss? And if so, how often? Now I bet you've missed at least one day the last 2 weeks, and trust me, I've missed significantly more. But what when you shower and you're just waiting for the soap to have its effect? Well, I started flossing, and Matthew Dicks has been as well. And I'm sure that he's been not missing a single day for a long time. I keep a roll of dental floss always right next to me and my soap, and my roommates have already questioned me for it, but when I told them why, they were shocked and intrigued. It goes like this. Switch off the shower after rinsing off your hands and simply floss for as long as you need to. I have a skin condition that requires me to apply soap for about 3 to 4 minutes, so I normally spend the time flossing and getting my teeth tip-top shape. I've not missed a day of flossing since I started, and I dream of seeing my dentist proud of my amazing dental hygiene. Overall, the book has many other great lessons about progress over perfection, passion, and life. Keep motivation constant. 12-week year. Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington are two best-selling authors and entrepreneurs who wrote this book dedicated to the 12-week year method that they use to coach many companies to success. Not only do they teach you how to maximize your goals, but also how to articulate them. The deciding factor in how passionate you're going to be about something is vision. as they put it. And it's interesting to see how they describe crafting a vision to steer motivation. The 12-week year method is an action plan that maximizes not only each week, but each day. Because as they say, it's not enough to be busy. The question is, what are you busy about? I mean, we all know the feeling, an upcoming deadline, beating us towards the event, we get the majority of the work in. And in most cases, it's a very uncomfortable, stressful, and tiring process. And at the end, we might not even get the desired result, right? It's so much more sustainable if we simply divide the allocated time over a very structured time frame. According to Moran and Lennington, many companies make as much as 30% of their revenue in December. The National Institute of Health describes this periodization as a process in training that athletes most often use to learn and enhance separate skills during training season. It originally stems from Eastern Europe during the 1960s. Now it's true. Why should we only start putting in the work in December before the year ends? How do you structure your 12 weeks by the author's methods? Let's go through structuring your action plan together, step by step. First, you write down a goal that aligns with a vision. These can be multiple, but preferably not more than 3 important ones. Or you'll end up polishing not a single skill or project of yours. Try and structure these goals by the SMART method: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. If you keep all these keywords in mind, your goal is SMART. Secondly, you set yourself weekly goals with assisting sub-goals. You're basically chopping up your main goal or goals and dividing all the work so that it becomes more realistic and digestible on a week-to-week basis. So the weekly goal should always be achieved by completing your sub-goals. Also be aware of how well you did. For example, keep track using a certain percentage and calculate the average of all sub-goal percentages for the weekly percentage. Try and structure your week so that you find time for these sub-goals. If you really are lacking time, perhaps tone down on the actual goal itself. Lastly, always write down your weekly lead and lack indicators. Lead indicators are things that contributed to you doing well, and lack indicators are things that contributed against your goals. For example, distractions or maybe a lack of proper execution. Write at least 1 point down for each and put emphasis on always writing down something for the lead indicators. Too often than not, be it at work or in our private lives, we ignore the positives, only focusing on the negatives. At the beginning of each week, spend at least 10 to 15 minutes planning a week or adjusting your sub-goals. However, I do suggest that into your 12-week year, you make as little adjustments as possible. Now, we always know that this feeling of looking back on things that we've done and we kind of feel confused about them. So if you really have the need to do so, then you should correct them. I kind of tied this into the lessons I learned from the book Some Days Today earlier this video, and it really worked wonders with my structure and execution. It doesn't put me under a lot of stress, but it still makes me more aware when it comes to keeping track of my process and actually executing rather than procrastinating. It kept me accountable and always on top of things. Completing sub-goals encouraged me each time to keep going, saying hell yeah or just no, hell yeah or no. The third point is all about decisiveness. Hell yeah or just no is a philosophy that goes like this. It's a Friday evening, you've just gotten home from a lecture or work, and you're just kind of bummed out. Luckily, your friends text you if you want to go party. So your natural response might just be hell yeah, right? Or just anything that lets you blow off some steam by socializing, having a good time, or just enjoying and forgetting all about those negatives. If your response would be simply no, then let it be. You have to ask yourself, is it exciting yourself as much, or are you doing it for somebody else? It's rational thinking to not only prioritize yourself, but also think more about the important things. Maybe also have some chores or phone calls that have been sitting in your head rent-free and just bothering you, which ultimately won't let you be and won't let you enjoy your evening. And then what? You're gonna pay an entrance fee, waste money on beverage or a taxi, and ultimately wake up with a hangover. You need to ask yourself, do I need this? It's a simple rule that often requires you to think ahead too. If you want to sign up for a paid course 3 weeks in advance, or your friend asks if you'd go running with them after work, it turns into an obligation. You have to be there, but you can still apply this rule earlier before making the decision. Think and ask yourself, do I want this? Am I doing it for the sake of somebody else? Am I doing it for the sake of saying yes? But at the same time, you can't just say, hell yeah, I'm gonna quit my job, or enlist in the military. Weigh the importance of your decisions. Weighted scoring models often help me by having a reasons why I should and reasons why I shouldn't column, respectively left and right. For example, going on a run, I should because it's healthy, plus 10. I am training for a marathon, plus 15. I enjoy it once I'm running, plus 5. Versus, I hate showering, minus 5. I have a video conference soon, minus 15, and so on. Add both columns together and then subtract the shouldn'ts from the shoulds and get 10. And inside you'd always know, so at times you'll also have to be open to new things to discover new opportunities. So I'm not saying you should just always watch your favorite Netflix series in the evening rather than go exercise simply because the thought of hard work doesn't make you say hell yeah. But in a moment of uncertainty, you often already know what your answer is going to be. Writing. Derek Sivers is one of my favorite writers, a great artist, entrepreneur, and quite possibly a really good role model. Definitely check out his blog as well in the description. I think something all writers have in common is that they are very self-aware and are constantly confronted with their fears and habits because they translate over into their writing. A habit of mine is that I tend to be very impatient, so writing has helped me taking things slow one step at a time. If I want a proper product, I need to be patient, rather than jotting down everything immediately and having a messy product. Every author has probably said this at one point. Write, keep a journal, write on a blog, and so on. I'm not saying to take it professionally. Sivers himself said that you don't need to be an artist. These words are for yourself and no one else. But you can share them with whomever you like. Writing lets you read between the lines better than when you think. When I failed an exam, I decided to put it into my journal, to simply write all my thoughts out. Slowly, I could piece them together. Why did this happen? Because when you write, your thinking process is also slowed down. You become more self-conscious and ask yourself questions like, why didn't I study enough? What are the reasons I ended up being so impatient? And so on. Especially in a moment of distress, it helps to write down everything. Same with to-do lists. Your head is constantly circulating between chore A and Z, but when you have them all tidied up, you know that they'll still be there when you come back. Ticking them off one by one as you complete them suddenly makes it feel much less dramatic. To know that these thought processes, especially long-term, are very dynamic, especially when you're working towards a solution. In 2 weeks, you may say, hey, this topic doesn't bother me as much, but it was interesting to capture a thought process. Looking back on these milestones and how you overcame them and also learned out of them is also enriching on its own. The importance of being financially sound. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki is an author and entrepreneur that originates from Hawaii. In his book, he mainly displayed the importance of financial soundness. He compared the financial lessons from his rich dad about money to the poorer financial decisions of his poor dad. But ultimately, it consisted of a mix between lessons from both of them. His rich dad, essentially his good friend's father, who acted as mentor, taught him all about entrepreneurship. He said that even though you may not work as a financial advisor or anywhere with a heavy emphasis on money or sales, it's still really important to know and understand how to spend and use your money for yourself. Learning these things is especially important to learn at the college stage, where most of us start living on our own and are really confronted with having to budget and spend money the smart way. Countless college students ultimately get a degree financed through student loans and fall into debt. And that cycle only continues in most cases. Many buy cars and houses instead of investing their money or discard the idea of getting financially educated in the first place, because you need a business degree for that. In the book, there's a heavy emphasis placed on the fact that nobody cares about anybody's financial knowledge. What I mean by that is people will continue to be lured into those pitfalls of poverty and taken advantage of due to their terrible handling of money. Increase your financial literacy. Kiyosaki's rich dad always described how you need to make your money work for you, not against you. It means to take control of your money and gain financial independence, gain wealth through investing. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go the Warren Buffett path and become rich through the stock market or whatever, but it's an asset that a lot of people underestimate. For example, research a broker with the return from an investment, or call your bank to establish a savings account. Invest into a vitally diversified portfolio, or let your bank or any financial broker do it for you. Vitally diversified, for example, ETFs like the MSCI Europa, the S&P 500, usually stand hand in hand with low risk and low reward. It's a slow process, but look at what Benjamin Franklin did. 200 years ago, he gave 4,400 US dollars, both to the city of Boston and Philadelphia, as a trust fund. So 8.8 thousand US dollars total. Now, 200 years later, in 1990, it was amassed to a total of 6.5 million US dollars. Perhaps inflation will never be as crazy as it was back then, but if you do the same thing with a smaller amount, I'm sure that by the time you're retiring, you'll still have a good sum at your disposal. But that's just one example. I, of course, study business sciences, so it's easy for me to say that I need to know these things. But there are a lot of things that university doesn't teach you about money, like the credit card scores, managing your own money, and assessing risk. Just do it. The Alchemist. This one may be the cheesiest one of them all. A novel that most of you may have read in school or at least heard of. I read this about 3 years ago, and I've mostly forgotten about this book and its lessons until this video, but I think in all its clichéness, there's something in it that we can all relate to. In Paulo Coelho's novel, the main character Santiago goes on this crazy impossible journey. Everybody doubts him, but he's really just doing this to achieve his own personal legend. It's what led him to his destiny, and when all things were meant to click, they did. Looking back, this resonates with my own fears, but also passions of my own. On this journey, you're often alone and really unsure if this is the right thing you should be doing. Like pursuing your crazy sport that everybody tells you is too dangerous, working longer shifts at your company, or working on a YouTube channel. It's about doing what your heart desires and doing your best to not let worries and doubts, whatever others may tell you, get in your way. It's the main message that I've kept, and perhaps something uplifting that I wanted to say before the video ends. It's simple. Sometimes you'll just have to jump right in rather than waiting for all the stars to align or God sending you a signal. So we're already at the end of the video. I really hope you've enjoyed this first video of mine. Please like the video for the algorithm and subscribe to the channel, and I hope you'll stay around for the ride. Goodbye.